Meeting started at 8:45. I'd like to ask us to all be upstanding and for Councillor Arthur to lead us in prayer, please.
Almighty God, we acknowledge that we have a responsibility to look after your creation, especially this region we call Buckhorn Regional Council. We are also conscious that our decisions are going to affect deeply the lives, land and property of the people we have come here to serve. Remind us to exercise respect for each other, for each of our fellow councillors, staff and for the people of our region. Help us in this meeting to act wisely, justly and intelligently in all our deliberations. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of both leading and serving, and assist us to do these well. Amen.
Amen. Whilst we're upstanding, I'd just like to acknowledge the passing of Mr. Harry Sanderson, Mrs. Anne Louisa Hearn of Marylands, and Mr. Peter Naylor of Politics Station Narromine. No condolences, councillors.
No, that's right. That's right.
Since we last met, councillors, there's also been a series of significant natural disasters occur in South East Queensland, North East New South Wales. I think every person in the room appreciates rain, except perhaps in the quantities that was received down there over the time of rain that was received. Unfortunately, there was a significant loss of life. Thoughts are with those local government areas that are up today, far from worried about ordinary business. They're still trying to find a way to get their rubbish off the streets and mud out of their water mains and sewage treatment plants, and it'll be quite a number of years before some of those communities, if they ever do, return to a sort of sense of normality, especially Lismore and Ballina in northern New South Wales. Some truly sobering scenes come to light there, but I spent some time in Brisbane just recently as the water was just slowly starting to recede, and it's had a very significant impact on a lot of industrial areas and certainly a lot of residential impacts as well, even by people not affected by inundation, but just power out for 5-6 days has caused a serious disruption to their day-to-day living. So as we are in their thoughts, I'm sure that they have been in our thoughts and will continue to be so as they attempt to rebuild. It's amazing how some of those catchments haven't seen better than 60% for the last 8 to 10 years, and they were at 200% within 3 days, just the volume of rain that fell. I think some parts of the media referring to things like a rain bomb, which is interesting terminology, but it literally was. Someone went bang and dropped a metre of water overnight. It was incredible. I'd just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and their elders, both past, present and emerging. I don't think there's any apologies needed. Councillors, just please move to your declarations of prescribed conflict of interest. I have from Councillor Arthur, agenda item 337, as a close associate of his as a supplier of goods related to this contract, concrete supply through Buckhorn Transport. The nature of your relationship is because of employment.
Yes.
It's the only notified conflict of interest I have. Are there any others?
Councillor Rogers and
Councillor Beagles is declaring, very swiftly sent an email across the chamber. I walked around and gave me your iPad, Councillor. Save the world $1. Councillor Beagles is declaring a prescribed conflict of interest in agenda item 3.4.2. Apartment Porter Street is his home. This is a previously declared PCI, so it stands on record. And 3.7.2, Councillor Beagles PCI declaration for 372, as he is the President of Central West Racing Association, and he will also most likely be a bookmaker for himself at that meeting. He will be dealing with this by leaving the room. You have more, Councillor Rogers. Are they previously declared? Or are you going to
Oh, so they're DCOIs.
Are there any others? Does any councillor present believe that another councillor present may have overlooked one? DCOIs. I don't have any, but I believe you have some. Brett? You better read them into the record. Sorry, not Brett. I need the new ones. You just want to, if you go into detail for the new ones for us, and then just remind us of the ones that are already previously declared.
So I'm calling this meeting that under declarable conflict of interest in 3.6.1, the officer report alpha as defined in section 150 of the Local Government Act 2009. The nature of my interest is I created that sculpture trail, and there is images of some of my sculptures in that report, but I would wish to participate in receiving that report. However, I acknowledge that eligible councillors must determine pursuant to section 150S of the Local Government Act 2009 whether I may participate, and I also have the previous conflicts of interest with the 3.4.2 and 3.5.1, the progress report and the works report. I also have...
Sorry, the previously declared ones, Council has already resolved to allow Councillor Rogers to remain in the room. Correct?
That's correct.
Councillors present, do you wish to change your... I just want to go back to the first one. We've left it, sorry, just so that we don't get out of order. 361, Councillor Rogers has declared a DCOI and has left it in your hands as to whether the council will remain in the room or not. Do we have a resolution? That's the Alpha Information Report, Alpha Jericho District Manager Information Report. There's an image in there of one of Councillor Rogers' sculptures.
I'm happy to leave the Councillor Rogers stay in the room, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Beagles, second Councillor Hanson. Discussion? Those in favour? 6-0.
Mr. Mayor, I also have a DCI in 3.9.2, the Australian Travel Advertising, 3.9.3, Bendigo Monthly, 3.9.4, Caravan Australia, and 3.9 in TV advertising as defined in section 150EN of the Local Government Act 2009. This declarable conflict of interest arises because there is a strong possibility that the media promotion will drive traffic to the sculpture trail, and I will leave the room for those agenda items.
Thank you. So, Councillors, resolutions 392 through 396, Councillor Rogers intends to leave through her declared conflict of interest. No need for Councillors to resolve. Any other declarable conflicts of interest?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, has Councillor Rogers previously sponsored the motorbike stop track?
Previous Mayor, yes, I have.
Do you intend to
Pointer. Mr. Mayor.
What was that?
Councillor Rogers has sponsored the Marlborough Stock Chat previously. I think it was last year, wasn't it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Last year when you dealt with this, but you left the room.
Did I?
Yes. You voluntarily chose to.
And that was I had
Already indicated.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to sponsor probably the same event as council, whereas if I did this time, it would be just, it wouldn't be for any event. I'm not sure what.
I think you should declare and leave it to the room whether you stay or go.
Plus, Mr. Mayor, I think it's dependent on the level of sponsorship too, wouldn't it?
No,
Over the term.
councillor say therefore, because you've already done it, it's a
Yeah.
registered declarable. It would be in your register of interests as a sponsored organisation.
So I will get that. So
373.
Prescribed sponsorship.
I think it's declared, isn't it?
I thought it was prescribed if it was over. Well, it's not a gift, but it's.
Stand by.
Well, it's sort of like, it depends on the amount, but it's almost like a business deal, really, isn't it?
Over
Like,
12 months.
because you do get
It's only 12
that.
months, so not just.
Like it's not.
No, it's only your lifetime as a councillor and council of people.
Yeah, the lifetime councillor.
Lifetime, it doesn't, never drops off.
Right. When you talk about that there, Mr. Mayor, it's a DCLI.
That's prescribed. Sorry, did you say which letter? D or P?
P.
Well, that's what the CEO thought as well, so I'll roll with that. Right, you want to declare it? Perhaps should declare it, you have to if it's a PCI. 373.
Thank you, councillor. Actually,
No, that's all. Just
I will declare 3.7.3 as a PCI and I will declare one.
I'm going to check. Thank you. It's declared as such, but I'm going to check that.
The other thing too, could you, I actually check, Mr. Mayor, please, with that sponsorship, is it sponsorship that you give or is it sponsorship of yourself?
Repeat the question. No, it's both.
Both
If
ways.
they happen to sponsor you for some reason or provide you with some gift, then you have to declare it. Just if you sponsor them. And of course, any group that you sponsor to the value of more than $500 is declared on your register of interest that you periodically update every 6 months with this office.
It's prescribed if the donation is more than $2,000 over the term. Councillor term.
Under that.
So yeah, you haven't decided anything.
No. It's under that, like if I.
You're over the threshold to declare it,
Yeah.
but you're under the threshold where it would automatically preclude you from being in the room.
Yeah.
So I think
Or should I just leave this to Mayor and I'll still leave it?
I think technically it's a declarable conflict of interest, and if you intend to deal with it by leaving the room, or you state it as such. So we'll just change your declaration to a DCOI instead of a PCOI, please.
Previous Mayor, just having said that, the 3.8.2, leading the Central West, I have attended 2 of their workshops. Does that make that? Do you think that makes it I haven't sponsored them or done anything like that. I have attended their workshops in the past.
Were they free? Did you pay for it? Did they pay you, or were you sponsored to be there?
Yes. No, I didn't pay for it. The first time.
Are you likely to benefit from this? So forget the past. Are you likely to apply to attend?
No, I'm not going to.
Then I don't think this resolution results. You're not a sponsor of this event. You may have been to a workshop that they've run, but this, if you don't view that your interest in this is any greater than any other member of the community in supporting this or denying this, then I can't see an interest.
I think, should I ask the other councillors whether they,
To do that, you would have to declare it.
does that mean that I don't vote or I do?
Well, you can declare it and then leave the decision as to what your continued activity in that particular item is by the other councillors. I genuinely can't see how the fact that you
If you're not a sponsor,
or haven't been a sponsor.
then, and your attendance is no different to anyone else in the region. Like, everyone had the opportunity to attend.
But this resolution deals with a future event.
Yeah.
If you're not, so anyone in the room could be one of the 5 local community members. Your interest,
Well, I think that they would have to apply to go in it.
but so would you.
Yeah,
So, yeah, but your previous attendance doesn't automatically guarantee you front of the queue status or anything to attend. I can't see how your interest is any different to that than any other councillor here.
Through you, Mr Mayor,
It's not as
Correct, but councillors are the only ones that have to declare.
through you, just to add another layer of complexity, unless council has sponsored those previous events that Councillor Rogers has attended, and Councillor Rogers thinks the value of that is more than the $500, yeah, which I guess is hard to calculate, but
I think did council sponsor the one in 2016? But I think did council sponsor the Buckhorn one? So there was a one in Buckhorn, I'm pretty sure in 2016.
Did you?
But I
16 or 17
attended
mentions
one
one.
here.
You
The
did
first, yeah, I did attend that one that was in 2016. And then I attended another one in Longreach, like a couple of years ago. Yeah, it was a couple, at least 2 years
I just
ago.
want to point people back to the fact that this doesn't deal, that previous attendance doesn't have any bearing on future events. This resolution's about courses coming up on the 28th to the 30th of October this year. I can't see, because somebody's previously attended something, there's any conflict of interest about resolving whether this body sponsors this event.
I just think it'd be a shame because has anyone else attended one? I just could at least explain what they do.
Sorry.
What they do. And
We're dealing with conflicts of interest. Like, councillors attend the Aramac Races and Marlborough Stock Show. Everything we sponsor, councillors attend. So I think we're getting
so that's,
I can't see how
sidetracked.
whether
You're not, unless you are individually sponsoring the event.
I'm receiving a benefit out of it. And
well, we all receive
was
simply
mine-
because council may have sponsored an event doesn't give us a conflict of interest unless we individually receive a benefit as a councillor for that. So, for example, if we get free admittance, drinks, hospitality as a result of council sponsorship or individually as a result of our sponsorship, then there's an interest once it hits a threshold. But simply, if we go to, say, the Aramac Races and council's a sponsor of the Aramac Races and we all pay our own way and we don't receive anything as a sponsor of that event, there's no conflict of interest. So attending this workshop even if you intend to attend at this time, sorry, not even, unless you intend to apply. If you have got a stated intention to apply, and then I would then think you could benefit from this decision. But simply because you've attended in the past doesn't automatically give you any interest, in my opinion.
So attending meaning that Melinda's attending it and she's doing a workshop, or is she receiving anything like that?
Yeah, I did a workshop in the past twice.
So
like
you-
one here, and the one here, they put out an ad they put an ad out and they asked people to apply for a spot. There was, I can't remember how many spots there were that they were sponsoring, like that organisation. And I received one of those. So, but I don't know if I was given preferential. Like, I was just one of other locals who received that spot
And did you gain a benefit from receiving that spot?
during the workshop.
The sponsor,
That's
Mr.
dealing
Mayor, the
historically.
sponsor benefits are in the term of this council.
Oh, I totally agree. I
Minister,
can't make one connection in my mind that would find any conflict of interest for Councillor Rogers in this resolution at all. And I try my hardest to find them, and I can't find one. But councillors, it's in your hands. Do you feel Councillor Rogers has a declaration to make in this respect? No? Good. Moving on.
Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify the previous? The sponsor benefits is if it's between $500 and $2,000, it's declarable.
Yep.
If it's over 2,000.
That's right. Which is what Councillor Rogers has done. We changed it. No, we changed it from a prescribed back to a declared and elected to leave the room.
Declared.
Can I have somebody move agenda item, that we received the 15 February minutes. Thank you, Councillor Plum. Seconder, Councillor Gleeson. In favour? 7-0. Comments, errors, omissions, alterations? I have somebody move that those record be confirmed. Councillor Plum, Councillor Hanson, those in favour? 7-0. Are there any petitions present? There are not. Pardon? No. Reports. I have somebody move my information report 321. Councillor Peoples, seconded Councillor Gleeson, those in favour. 7-0. Been quite an extensive, busy fortnight away. I had a series of meetings in Brisbane, followed by a livestock transport road safety forum that I hosted and chaired a public forum of. That meeting was quite positive. There was a continued dialogue that that body will now have with local government moving forward as an added advocacy layer for their outcomes, but also around understanding improving road funding outcomes, which means they're going to work very closely with us at looking at the boundaries of local government areas and road groups. They've got some important information they can feed into us that help us around heavy vehicle rest areas, decoupling locations, sale yards. It was a powerful presentation by a representative of Urban Energy. That's a really bad pun, wasn't it? A really impressive presentation about working in proximity to power lines, which I'm going to request the CEO make available to all of us individually and our staff. It is first class. It's confronting, it's challenging, but it deals with how easy it is to come in contact with live power lines. Obviously very prevalent for the livestock transport industry because a standard double-decker is less than 1 metre from a high voltage power line once you're on top of the gap, but it also deals with collision at ground level. It was it was only a 25-minute, half-hour presentation. It was quite good. He's a very powerful speaker, so we'll liaise with the CEO about how we get him in front of our workforce at some point, because it was something that at the first you hear safety, you hear, well, it's just going to be like that, and within 30 seconds of his presentation starting, the hair standing up on the back of your neck, it was frighteningly real. Very, very, very good. I, on the sidelines of that, had several discussions with the Federal Assistant Road Safety Minister, who's sort of pretty well the Minister with carriage for the roads of strategic importance funding. We hammered hard on our linkages to that, which is namely Alpha Tambo, also Alpha Clermont and Aramac Buckhorn are our top road priorities. Torrens Creek is obviously still on that, being advocated very heavily for from the north, even though it's fully funded for sealing. Blenders have extended their advocacy now to widening, which is really good. That fits our narrative. Like, even though the roads out through our patch is sealed, we're continuing to advocate that get the floodways get upgraded where possible, like where they're impacted consistently, and widening jobs. So Flinders and Buckhorn are working in tandem there without even having coordinated that. I can't pretend that we did, but our advice through to the feds on this has been solid, which is good. That's consistent, which is good. I've met twice with the Deputy Premier on a number of issues, prominently related to showgrounds, but also around power and, missing off my meetings list, sorry. I think we had my apologies there. We met twice, or had two separate meetings with Ergon Energy officials relating to the power situation north of here and east of here. There is a dedicated strategy to rectify that. They're very aware of the outages and the impacts from low voltage events. So there's a number of immediate steps that have been put in place to share between the phases to help minimise where one phase dips. So those have already been put in place, and anecdotally, things have stabilised somewhat in our low voltage events in the east. However, the vast majority of the faults are due to the feeder line from Jericho to Alpha. They clearly know that is aged and dated. They have a replacement time frame for that of 4 years, 3.5, sorry, 4 or 5 months of this year, and then another 3 financial years. Work on methodology of 15 kilometres a year is what they're doing there. That's sort of a bit of a workforce management thing, to be fair, and I called it and said that council obviously supports renewing it if that's going to. That will eliminate 2/3 of the outages, just that upgrade alone. And it's very similar work to what they've already done to the north between here and Aramac. They have other work to do, mainly reconductoring around Aramac and Muttaburra. More of the issue there. I sort of suggested very clearly to senior Ergon officials that it needed to be expedited more quickly than 3 to 4 years, who got one of the reps thought that maybe you do 40 Ks a year and you start very quickly, had a heart attack. But we certainly will be advocating that if this is the solution. We asked whether other solutions could be better investigated, such as a substation. It's already been identified north of Alpha. Instead of doing the line, build a substation and redo the feeder, it's not their preferred option. So that's fine, they're the experts, they're the transmission people, but we think that the solution should take 3 years to put into place if they can expedite that. So more to watch. The board of Energy Queensland is meeting where we're sitting very shortly. Debbie, when's that? July? June?
19th of May.
So they'll be actually physically here. So it'll be good to be able to meet face to face with the board. Not their operational decision, of course, but we can hammer home that home. The most recent rapid meeting was the most positive, proactive, engaging meeting of councils that I've been to. Complimented the chair on that. It was, we got into some standard debate around issues that affect local government. There was a serious review of Rapid's Lake Eyre Basin position, or our position with respect to the Lake Eyre Basin. It's undergoing a regulatory impact statement for what changed activity could mean to the Lake Eyre Basin. Now, obviously, when people think Lake Eyre Basin, and from a regulatory point of view, they think the flood out of the channels. But of course, it has serious impacts for us on things like Aramac Creek, Lagoon Creek. Basically 2/3 of our local, or a bit less than that of our area is affected. So, impacts around potential irrigation or lack of it. Resource extraction is the big one, especially gas, and its proximity to the floodplain, in inverted commas, is something that we strongly put representative on. So that has been modernised. I wouldn't say it's been changed substantially from the historical Lake Eyre Basin policy of Rapid, but it certainly has probably been made a little bit more pointed. The language around it has become pointed and less interpretable. I think it now speaks for itself a little bit more clearly. I've made several representations to federal ministers, and we're going to go through all the ones that I've met with, but they're on that list there, around the continuity of the LRCIP funding. I've said it's probably one of the more effective local government funding models currently available to us. I mean, it essentially works for Queensland on steroids. And I've said that continuing will be a major boost to local economies and the financial sustainabilities of local government. It's the ability for us to get stuff done. So it generates jobs, maintains employment, and builds new infrastructure and upgrades old infrastructure to a level that we wouldn't be able to do without it. I'm quite confident of a positive outcome in that respect, but I have to do a little bit more work for the LGAQ in pushing that case, but it does appear that that's positive. We had a phone Zoom with the Chief Health Officer regarding showgrounds. It is a vexing problem. However, the Deputy Cho wrote to us on Friday and informed us that very shortly we will see a significant easing of the situation around mandates, not only for showgrounds. They're aware of it. Their legal advice says that it's too complicated to simply extricate from within the directive showgrounds. However, the Cho's aiming for mandates to be removed very promptly, and that wasn't only evidenced in that one briefing of Mayor's, it was evidenced in his presentation face-to-face with us at Charlotte of the Western Queensland Alliance. He is philosophically, he stated that Queensland is the world's best response case. Textbooks are and will be continue to be written about the way Queensland's managed the pandemic. Never happened before in history, and definitely the best outcome anyone's ever seen to date. But philosophically, he wants people to get back to life as they knew it previously. He wants mandates to ease. He understands that's not possible to eliminate this virus. It will be with us in our community like a whole host of other viruses that we don't even know the names of. But yeah, so his position is mandates will go, but they can't go like that. They'll be phased out. The first mandate to go obviously was when we lost our need to wear masks from the 7th in most places. The Western Queensland Alliance of Council Assembly was very good. We have a number of follow-up out of that, and one I'll let Brett talk to in his report relates to perhaps some positive engagement around the provision of NDIS and aged care services through an alternative model that need not replace but could complement council's work in this space. So obviously very early days, but that was one, actually probably the first contact I made on the first night we were there, and will probably go down as one of the best, potentially could go down as one of the best contacts we'll make in that space. Later this week will be the announcement of the Buckhorn Regional Council Westec George Bourne Associates scholarship recipients. I was really, truly impressed, as we were last year. A few less applied this year, but there were less scholarships as well. Really high quality candidates. It's something that you as councillors should be proud of, to be behind that. Those 3 recipients that we've chosen could have been matched, 5, could have been matched by another 3 or 4 very easily. Very diverse group of tertiary and non-tertiary pursuits being explored, including a apprenticeship that's based here locally in Buckhorn. So it's not all about university, some of it's about resourcing people who are undertaking trades locally, young kids and young men and women. So, yeah, good thing. Right, questions? I haven't summarised every single meeting I've been to there, but, they're summarised there, but I haven't gone into detail in this presentation about each of them, but I'm happy to provide more information.
Statement, Mr. Mayor, I totally agree with you about those bursaries. I think one of the best things we've done in a long time. I think they're great with you.
And it's good that we can be partnered by private enterprise and a community group. Like, it's not just council going alone doing everything on their own. You've got a community group like Westtech and a major employer in the community like George Vaughan Associates that have match our dollar for dollar contributions. Might get somebody else to sit on that panel. I've done the last 2, and yeah, it's easy to be impressed. So good for somebody else to do that. I'll ask one of you to deputise for me next year so you can see the quality of applicants we're getting, because it's a tough job, very tough job. Any more questions?
Not a question, Mr. Mayor, just a comment. The local government integrity training that we did last month, I left that more confused than when I entered the room, but the acting CEO's forwarded an email, some feedback that has clarified a couple of things that I had when I walked out of the room.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment, Councillor Arthur. I know one of the positions that could come out of the OIA parliamentary investigation is more compulsory training by the department. I'd just like to see, should that come to be, and even around integrity training, I'd like to see a little bit more clarity and consistency and immediacy of advice. The department is responsible for the law, like they wrote the law. And you know, I know I'm being watched in saying this, but yeah, look, I appreciate receiving the training, and there were elements of it that were very good, very positive, reaffirmed or changed, but made very clear in my mind. But I know we can throw some complicated things at it, but I think that probably shows a few holes in both the way that law is drafted and the way it's applied through regulation to councils that are going to have a diversity of individuals make it up, whether it's artists, road construction or bookmakers. This room is reflective of local governments all across Western Queensland, probably not major urban centres because they're politicians. You know, they're people who leave a career or a profession to one side to go and enter into local government, and good on them. And I hope they stay at that because they need to. But 7 of us or the 6 of you, that's slightly different here. And I just like the department to be, I mean, Paul did a stand-up good job of these presentations, but there's still some very confusing elements of it that's not his fault, perhaps.
No,
it's
correct.
Well, in fact, I know it's not his fault, but we've still got to get clarity more often, more quickly on those issues, because they vex us on a monthly basis.
And Mr. Mayor, and when we're getting information and having a integrity training like that, because, you know, it's not totally clear, you've not really got that much confidence in, are you getting the right information? No, you still leaves you with doubt when you walk out of the room. And I know that was your case, Dan, because you've done some fair bit of work to try and make your position simpler, and I think you...
Councillor Arthur certainly has done that work himself.
I know, but on that day, it was sort of... Yeah.
I think the one thing I like about the department receiving the training is there is no higher authority. They are in. So where we get EMU training from LGAQ or a law firm comes in and trains us on it, they're interpreting something as a third party. One, and so, yes, but no one else can give us clarity. Whatever clarity anyone else gives us is not the same as departmental advice, because I personally would rely on departmental advice to defend me, but I wouldn't rely on anyone else's.
But does even their advice, it's still a matter of opinion if the OIA have got a different opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we're going to see significant reform there.
Yeah.
I mean, the OIA is widely panned for its inability to truly interpret its requirements to protect integrities of council. That's a commonly known fact now in a number of submissions from all manner of parties. There will be real reform of that body coming out of this inquiry. Of that, I'm very, very confident. Both sides of politics are very clear that we need to provide some more rigour to the OIA's activities to fix it up. I think the OIA will grow to be a very powerful body. We don't want to go back to where mayors and CEOs are responsible for disciplining councils, and I think anyone of us want to see that. But there will be some more rigour and backbone put into what the OIA is supposed to do, instead of allowing it some creative licence that it currently has. All right. Sorry, I should have referenced that stakeholder engagement with the Alpha Caravan Park. That will be an ongoing matter for budget consideration. But it was a really positive meeting with a local business group, the district manager and CEO, and I attended that. And there's some good learnings to come out of that meeting, and some very open and transparent look at their business model for that facility. So we'll keep a watching brief on that, and in more details provided through our budget process. Councillor Plum.
What's the women in STEM? What's all that? Is that something?
Yeah, so our partners at Queensland University of Technology have applied for a federal government grant to further, there's a university grant to further heighten female participation in STEM subjects, which is really bad at the moment, like it's really low. We have said that we support the aspiration. STEM subjects are critical for us out here, and obviously getting female participation, and that's a really positive thing. And we'd be a beneficiary of that through hosting workshops and we said we'd provide council facilities, like the town hall and so forth, to help facilitate that engagement if they were able to get the grant. So we'd be an in-kind supporter. It all fits within the terms of our MOU, but yeah, so that's what it's about. STEM subjects are really underutilised at the moment. The demand for future jobs is in the STEM area, so STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths. John? Massive demand from the private sector and public sector for STEM graduates. Very, very underutilised in terms of applications. Just to give you an example, there were only in Australia-wide last year, male or female, there were only 46 graduates from mine, from a pretty important mining engineering degree. Every single one of them was swallowed by one company. There was a need for 470 or something of them, Australia-wide graduates. It's 46, less than 10% of the market requirement. So, yeah, we're just trying to support that up and follow it up on terms of our MOU. All right. Will somebody move? We receive Brett's report, please. 331. Councillor Gleeson, seconded Councillor Rogers. Those in favour? 0. Brett.
Mr. Mayor, we've conducted the recruitment for a Director of Works. So that's been completed. We're signing a contract tomorrow. So, next meeting, we'll have a Director of Works. The Alpha House sale, The Minister approved that yesterday. So we'll be able to sell that house to one of our employees. So there will be later in the meeting, we'll have a mayoral minute to do that. Obviously, it's not in the agenda. We only received the letter yesterday. The Alpha and Jericho water treatment plant, so the contractor has given us a preliminary report. That contractor is also working on the SCADA and telemetry region-wide. So we've engaged into now prepare a detailed report so that not only do we get those two water treatment plants upgraded, but the SCADA and telemetry will be regional for all our sewage and water plants. So we're just waiting on that report. But his preliminary estimate is $150,000 to upgrade those two plants. Just getting the electrical, the computers, everything up to current standards. As the Mayor mentioned, we had two meetings with Ergon Energy, or Energy Queensland as they're now called. So that was, from when we first raised this issue back in November, obviously ramped up their pursuit of finding solutions for this region. So there's quite a substantial investment. We still don't think it's enough, but but at least they are addressing the problem, and
Helps that the stakeholder minister and the deputy premier are very keen to see the resolution of the issue as well.
So the Mayor also mentioned about the rapid meeting and the water Lake Eyre Basin. For me, that was the most critical thing that we did on those 2 days. I don't know whether the other councils really considered it until we raised it at the meeting and really focused on those issues, because once that report's completed, that will guide water licences in this whole Lake Eyre Basin probably for 10 years at least. So if that locks down water, if the outcome of that is that more water is locked up than land, that we will not get access to that water.
Or
any future business will not get access to that water. So we really want them to focus on, we can't just have water locked up for environmental purposes. We need to consider other industries as well. And of course, then the issues are that the people in the Diamantina, Georgina, Thompson, they have different attitudes to water, what we do. So then people further downstream, their attitude is different. Like we're right at the start, our council, but whatever is decided affects us just as much as it affects them. So we really need to be careful about the outcomes are there. As Councillor Arthur said, we did have some follow-up on that integrity training. I do believe that there may be some changes to the legislation as well on that, just to confuse you even more. So we met with the Bureau of Meteorology. So they're looking at putting an automatic weather station in Mark Alden. Just trying to find a location, a suitable location for that. The post office manual reading will continue. If they go ahead, they will still have the manual reading at the post office for 5 years. They can do comparison data. I attended the CEO forum, a couple of the issues there. Some of the CEOs are concerned with price increases and the effect that's going to have on our asset valuations and therefore our depreciation. Quite substantial increases. So things like road construction, if that's going up substantially, well, the valuations will go up, depreciation will go up. The Brisbane City Council CEO spoke about the Olympics, so that's Brisbane 2032, which is 10 years away. So they have a strategy of a 10+10 legacy. That's the 10 years leading up to the Olympic Games and then the 10 years following the Games. So the idea is not to focus on the 2 weeks of the Olympics and the 2 weeks of the Paralympics, but we look at the 10 years either side. And so we've started, the 10 years starts now. And they're looking at things like how do we improve our sporting facilities as part of that program. There'll be quite a, countries all around the world want to come to Queensland to acclimatise, to train, that they'll need facilities throughout Queensland. But also community programs, so there'll be community sports programs that go in with that. So we need to start thinking about that, how we want to be part of that legacy. Maryborough mentioned, we'll talk about that later. So at the disaster management training in Longreach, or at that meeting, the disaster management meeting, we agreed to go back to alert status for our LDMG.
We're probably not very far away from standing down completely.
Yep, so the highlights, Mr. Mayor.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor, the Career Expo, is that something that's held regularly? Is it a one-off new thing?
I think they have had one previously, but yeah, it's a sort of one-off. So, Mr. Mayor, that's through Rescue and also the senior officers through all the government departments in Central West participating in that, planning for that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do we have a time frame on the arrival of our new Director of Work? Like month, 6 weeks? Unsure?
I'm hoping by the end of this month. Just had a slight hiccup with COVID. But tomorrow once I sign the contract tomorrow, I'll advise everyone.
Yep. And Mr. Mayor, the new district disaster management plan Does that have a trickle-down effect on our local stuff, or is it more high level and doesn't really have a... No, that's right.
Pretty well. Phil would be able to find connectivity of that. It's more high level. It's about coordinating at a district level, mainly multi-agency responses. It's like, I'll get a copy for you, but it's out of interest, so you can have a read through it. It's a bit extensive. Yeah, it's...
But we do have to do, so arising from that, we have to do some training. And we also have to have an LDMG meeting prior to the next DDMG. With May.
Just regarding the district, it's us to management. Isn't it incredible to think that the ambulance in Maryborough is waiting on an emergency satellite phone? It's incredible.
No, they've got a phone.
Is the wording wrong?
They've got a phone in the car. This is for, we've volunteered the Maryborough Health Centre as a trial location for a hardwired satellite phone for when the community loses phone service. There was COVID, was a problem with procuring.
So that would have thought in an area like that that has so much problems that so the council, you've been part of pushing for that.
We asked for it.
Yeah, very good.
So the only reason ambulance is referred to is they're
Lead agency.
Yeah, they're the agency that is acquiring these phones. We're paying for it. So we're acquiring this phone for Maryborough. Yeah, but it would be located at the health centre. And so that if everyone loses communications in Maryborough, still go to the health centre and get access, communication access.
We'll just have to do a bit of community information and training of the residents that if everything goes south and you need an emergency response, go there. There'll be a box there with instructions, but that phone even has backup power.
Yeah, I think very good, very good.
It's one of 32 communities that are known as CIT's community in something. This phone service. Oh no, it's not quite. I've got the acronym wrong. It's one that regularly loses access to phone services or communications. It's isolated. I'm sorry, I've got it wrong now. Might even have the order of the letters wrong. Community's in trouble. That sounds good, but that's not what it is. We asked for that. We volunteered them. We've heard a briefing on how these phones work. Maryborough was identified as one, so we put a hand up in Longreach 6 months ago. More, 7 or 8 months ago.
I think it's really, really good, Mr. Mayor, that it's been done and good on the Shire for doing it, or the council for doing it.
We're using Get Ready funding.
Yes.
We pay for it. Using Get Ready. Every council has an allocation of Get Ready funding every year from QRA. A portion of that's going into that this year.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask, Brett, you've got here line 4, proposed employee structure in progress. At the last discussion we had on the proposed new structure, it was my understanding that the majority of councillors asked for some feedback from our staff before we made a decision either way on the structure. So why is the proposed employee structure in progress?
Mr. Mayor, sorry, that is the, so what we did at the council meeting was the big picture functions, the structure of all the functions. What I mean by that is actually putting a name to every employee and where they would fit in the structure, so that we can take it out to the employees then to get their feedback.
So really that should be consultation with employees ongoing.
Yes. Yep.
Is that sort of reads like proposed employee structure in progress is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I haven't made that clear. It's about actually, and it's completed, so we've actually gone through every employee and then find where they would sit within the structure. Then we'll send that out now to every employee. We want to do it as part of the induction day.
Because
To talk to them.
that last discussion we had, that there was going to be some feedback come back to us.
Yeah,
So as we can make an informed decision. Right, thank you.
That piece of work's probably the thing that you couldn't really consult until it's done, because the first question they'll ask you is, well, where do I fit? Whereas this now puts a physical name, and then they'll be able to follow directly who they report to and what their where in the functional structure they will end up.
Oh, I can understand that, but that read a bit differently.
It does.
Yeah, there's no implementation. Council has to approve it before
Yep, thank
there
you.
be any implementation. I did leave out the Western Queensland Alliance about the community care.
I thought someone would have asked about the first question, actually, but anyway.
So one of the groups that we did meet with in Charleville was a company that has come up with a unique model for helping with community care services. So we will invite them to come up and to meet with council, to explain how they operate, and then meet with the community. So it's really no different to what we're providing, except they manage the process in a much more flexible way. And in fact, from their model, they actually demonstrated that they bring a lot more money into the community, by a lot more people than what we would as a council, because of that flexibility.
Very quick.
So what it is, I don't want anyone to think that it's me thinking that we can get out of the space, but I think it could be an interesting complement for where we struggle to perhaps employ someone on a part or a full-time basis, but yet there's potentially someone in the community who may want to just work for so-and-so, might want to do 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day. They can register their interest to work, and they're not captured by council's HR system, they're not employed by us, but yet they are facilitated to go and do work for a client of NDIS or CHSP or whatever it is. So it allows people, the biggest thing that's changed under the HAC model, and it's directly as a result of the NDIS, but it's transitioned right across aged care services now, is the ability of the client to choose who they want to do the job for them. So, we are a provider of people who can do that, and we provide plan managers, and we provide, but we are not the only people who can do that. You do not need to be an employee of councils to undertake CHSP care. Anyone in the whole community can do that, and as a client, you can choose whoever you want to do it. So it's problematic when councils, obviously, people come, people go from council, and yet sometimes the client don't want to change who it is that undertakes their work for them. So this system could be a bit of a backfill for where there's an existing arrangement that both the client and the person undertaking the work want to continue, but for whatever reason that person doesn't want to work with us or us, that can still be facilitated through this process.
A couple of examples that they used were, say a client really liked football. They wanted to go and watch football. They could facilitate someone to take the client to football on Saturday night. Really? Sit there for 3 hours and get paid to do it. Whereas our HR wouldn't allow that. There's no way that we pay someone to do that.
Three years to me, just to compliment Brett, more value than McCoy. A bit of that, and he used to get paid to take fishing. And I would paid him to take fishing. He done a fair bit of it. It does what it did.
That makes sense now, Councillor Arthur, because last time
Councillor
I...
Hughes.
Thanks for the compliment, Councillor Nichols.
The last time I was at a race meet in Brisbane, there was a chap there that had a Caravan, and his request was he wanted to have a day at the races.
Yeah, my wife's uncle is an NDIS client, and he has people do, so they take him to the gym and do physical therapy with him, but then 2 days a week they go and either go bowling or go to the pub for a beer in the state, and he's physically unable to do that himself, but and that's funded through NDIS. And as a council, as a lawyer of people, we genuinely struggle to fill every need that these schemes have now morphed into doing, including nursing. I'll be explicit about one that we currently do in one of our communities where we provide it. We have no nurse left on staff, yet there's still clients of ours that are funded to receive community nursing as an option. There's possibly trained nurses in our community that have no intention of working for council or undertaking a permanent community nursing role, but might be quite prepared to go and treat one person and be funded through the scheme to do it. So or 2 people or however many, but not do that as a full-time job, 4 days a week or 6 hours a day or whatever it is. This model, what it does is you register as a participant and as a client effectively with it, and it allows the clients visibility of who's out there offering those services. It could be gardening. That was another reference that they gave us. Linda was a bit, someone might be interested in doing a bit of gardening for somebody, just to earn a bit of coin, So that, therefore, you register as a person who could offer a service, what you're prepared to offer, and then the clients get to choose you, and they facilitate sort of electronically this whole process. And we could be both involved in helping expose clients to this, because obviously technology can be a scary thing for some people, but that can also mean that we allow the client full freedom of choice where we might be struggling for provision of service in an area or even a temporary short-term, staff go on leave, we can't backfill. So I'm really confident that this model could be really positive for us if it acts as good as it looks. Really. I used to be wrong. But I don't want anyone to think that we're trying to transition away, just complementing services we offer, filling a need gap. What I said to Brett about this is we might facilitate these people coming up and having a chat. And I think the first group that we need to chat with would be us, just for them to explain better than we have what they do. And then we can facilitate a meeting with clients and so forth, so we can gauge what interests there'd be to support. Any more questions? 3.2, can I have someone move we receive the CIC? Councillor Peoples, Councillor Plum, those in favour? Carried. I'll take these as read unless any of you want to.
Can I just ask a quick question there, Brett? What is the smart water metering?
Well, that Telstra lodged on our behalf. So
electronic meters, water meters. Okay. So Telstra lodged a number of these throughout Queensland. So it's to install smart water meters throughout the.
Are you familiar with what they are, Councillor Peoples?
Yeah, I've got an idea now. We spoke about it previously.
You don't need to manually read each meter, it reports electronically.
Yeah.
Any more questions about any of this? Methodology for rural library services is included, which makes that pretty transparent how we received that.
Yeah, I included that, Mr. Mayor, just so you can see comparison of run throughout the state receives.
Getting a development report. If somebody move we receive that, please. So Plum, Councillor Rogers seconds. Those in favour? 7-0. Questions?
question in a minute, Mr Mayor. I'm just trying to get through the 100 pages to find it.
Okay. I will wait for you, councillor.
The new dwelling for Jericho's a positive,
It is.
Mr Mayor.
Yeah. Two new dwellings in their report. One in rural areas and one in urban. It's good.
I mean, more so, Mr Mayor, coming from a state government department.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
But yes, great.
Mr Mayor, regarding the power warrant in Alpha, it hasn't got anything to do with council anymore, has it? Or is it still?
Well, yes. Yes, but no. Like its immediacy, in its immediacy, no. It stays with the State Department. Now that it's called in, they're the chief decision maker in this. But should they choose to approve it, there's still a role for council to play through our infrastructure agreement and localised conditioning, things like access and so forth. So, no, at this point in time, it's hands off from us. Correct. Will council potentially play a role in the future? Most definitely. Probably only in the receipt of confirmation that it's going to be allowed to proceed. If it's turned down, well, council has no further role, full stop. Any more questions?
With the development of the accommodation campsites and the approval has therefore taken effect. So that's the last word. The approval is therefore taken effect. So is that approved, ready to go, or what's that mean?
So with any development application, once we issue the approval, there's an appeal period so that the developer can come back and appeal against our decision. We put conditions on there that they don't like, or if we've rejected something. So that appeal period's finished. So they've accepted our approval and our conditions of approval. I'm not sure how much development has actually taken place on the side.
Can I have somebody move we receive the economic development report, please? Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Arthur. Yes, in favour? 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, so we have the potential truck stop developer still interested, but we're still waiting on Department of Resources to finalise the offer for the freeholding of our land. We thought we were going to get the offer before Christmas. That sort of said May before they'll get that offer. So we just have to wait. Even if we get the offer, then we have to accept it. Have to accept the price, which we don't know what that will be.
Councillors, the bottom project or future projects referenced there, Brett and I had a chat about when amalgamation first occurred. Councillors sat down and they all came up with all of these different little pet projects that they wanted to see, or community groups that asked for them to develop. Pretty big list. There was a big chart, table, things like the Mudabarasaurus Interpretation Centre and a whole host of things on it. Between the odd one getting a line drawn through it and the majority being funded and built and delivered, kind of, I hate to say complete, but that initial visionary type thing that council subsequently bed into, as Brett calls it done now, really, and it's also probably timely even for the few things that might be left on at this council, because there's been a substantive change in the members of the council. So views may have changed. We sit down and have a bit of a look at, is there infrastructure build? Is there things that need finally investigation? And some of those projects have already been captured that you've raised through our 3-year capital works budget process, such as the RSL concept amphitheatre type thing for Aramac, Oak Street, additional car parking in Oak Street. Just a bit more of a statement so that officers know what they need to be working on behind the scenes, seeking ideas around funding. So Brett's proposed that Morgan come over and we sit down and have a bit of a chat about that in April to help guide where what it is. So it mightn't be a big list. In fact, I'd suggest it probably won't be. Listening to conversations, but this needs to be something as it's not a policy document even, but it's a really good tool for councillors and staff to work off when. And it could be an idea of, it could be a thing to encapsulate community feedback, the ticket box idea or whatever it is that community groups have asked for to improve their facilities. So that's what that future project reference is alluding to. So we're not just falling from one year to the next with capital works. All right, time being 10:02, let's refill our coffee cups.